Hey y'all, in this video I'm going to share 5 things you should know before you start a business. Let's get into it. Hey y'all, this is Tiffany with Boss on a Budget. I help people start their nonprofits, and I also help people raise money for their nonprofits, and I also help people launch successfully, whatever type of business you want to consider. I also provide tips and helpful information about what to think about when you want to launch your business. And today there are 5 things you just need to have straight. You just got to get that together before you decide to pursue a business. Now, I talk a lot about nonprofits, but this is whether you're starting a nonprofit, whether you're starting a business, it can all apply. And when in this video I come to a point where it may be a little different for nonprofits, I will point that out. So let's get right into it. The first thing you really should know for yourself is the government agencies you need to engage. What do I mean by that? If you're starting a business, you're going to have to know the government agencies that have expectations of you, and you got to know the government agencies that provide regulations for business. And there are different levels to this. This is the local area, this is the state, and then this is the federal government. Generally, when you want to start a business, you start your business at the state level, and it's usually the Secretary of State's office. They will provide guidance on how to get started, and also they'll probably have guidance on what you need to do to be in compliance. You may have to fill out an annual report, or it may be every 2 years you have to fill out a report. You may have to supply certain kinds of information. So you just need to know what's expected of you with the government agencies at your state level, and then also at the local levels. You may also need a certain license in order to do your business. Now, this isn't across the board. There are some businesses that you can operate that you don't necessarily need a license, or you don't need to pay for anything to conduct business. But on the other hand, there are absolutely some businesses where you're going to need a license. I'm thinking about like home improvement, fundraisers. I'm thinking about maybe hairstylists and things like that. You'll probably know in your industry that you're going to be required to sign up for a certification or sign up for some kind of license in your state. So you need to also know the government agencies that manage that, so you can be responsible for that. At the local level, there may even be a local requirement to conduct business in your local area. Maybe if you're using a physical space in your area, they may want to come out and inspect, or you may have to fill out an application in order to operate in a physical space. So you may also need to check out your township or your county or your town, whatever level you're in, just to make sure that you're following all the rules and you know what's expected of you. Here's the thing that I learned about business. You don't necessarily know what you don't know. So there may be some curveballs where you think you're good and then you realize, oh snap, there's this paperwork I gotta fill out. So it's really in your best interest to do your research early and often. Make sure you're on the listservs or on the email list of all these government agencies, so just so you can be aware of things that come down the pipe. And this is the other thing I'll say, make sure you have a good mailing address. That's the point of having a resident agent in your state, so that somebody can receive official mail, so you know what's happening with your business. So make sure you have a good resident agent with a good address, so you don't miss correspondence that a government agency may be sending you. So I talked about the state and the local level, right? But you also got to be mindful of the federal government. And mostly the federal government is really interested in income tax. They want to know how much you're making so they can tax it. And there are other things that you may need to be mindful of depending on the industry you're in. That's why you just need to know what's expected of you. For example, as nonprofits, you have to fill out your 990 tax form. That's different from other businesses. So you just need to know, whatever lane you decide, what's required of you, what do you need to do to be in compliance so you don't run into any issues later. The second thing you need to know is what type of entity you want to form. So when I started my first business, because this is not my first business, I thought there was only one type of business you could have. I thought LLC was the only type of business. So I just automatically set up an LLC, not understanding there are reasons why people would create other entities. There are tax reasons, there are personal reasons, there are liability reasons. I did my research to understand what an LLC was, and at the time everyone was saying it's a benefit, so I went down that route. But I didn't understand that I could possibly have a corporation, or my LLC could be taxed as an S Corp, and there are different things and different reasons why you want to go down different roads. But all I knew was that in order to have a business, I should have an LLC, right? I shouldn't be a sole proprietor. I need to establish an LLC. And I didn't really understand why. I just did it. I had a minimal understanding, but I just did it. For those folks out here who haven't started a business yet and you don't know what kind of entity you want, really do your research and talk to a tax professional. Because when I started another business and I created an LLC, as I began to make more money, it had serious tax implications for me. And I had to have a serious conversation with my accountant, and she advised me to set up a different type of entity for that very reason. And so she walked me through what I needed to do. And so what's the point of it? The point of it is you don't necessarily know just by reading on a website what works for you. That's why you should engage a professional, because there are different reasons why you may want to go different routes. You may be in a different position financially, you may be in a different position geographically, and setting up one entity type may make sense for you over here, but for the next person, it may not make sense. And so you need to have a tax professional assess your situation and advise you on what's the best route to take. Now, if you are a nonprofit, there are even different types of entities if you want to be a nonprofit. Most nonprofit organizations that do direct service work are corporations, but there are nonprofit associations and there are trusts. There are different types of nonprofits that don't just do direct services. Foundations are nonprofits too. So you really need to understand what entity you want to be and why. And one of the best ways to figure that out is always to consult a professional so they can assess your personal situation and help you decide what's best for you. Number 3 is serious. It's tax reporting. Y'all, if you think that you're going to make money and the IRS is not going to find out that you made money, you got another thing coming. And I know it feels good to make money, or if you got a side hustle, you got money coming in. It's a great feeling. But if you do not address your taxes, first of all, proactively, before you have to do your reporting at the end of the year, you're going to be in for a couple surprises. And I'm talking from experience. If you can't tell by how I'm explaining this, I'm talking from experience that if you don't really address your tax situation head on, you're going to have to deal with it eventually. So think about what is required of you in terms of tax reporting. And it's not just with the income that you make. That's one piece, but it's also what you sell. So you may be required to report on your sales, and the state that you're in may want you to remit the sales tax that you were supposed to charge for certain purchases. So let me break it down a little bit. On the income side, if you make money as a business, the IRS is going to find out. More and more companies are going to have to report the money that they send to you through business transactions. So for example, PayPal or Cash App or Zelle, if you cannot say that those transactions are gifts, they very well may be counted as income, and those companies are now required to report that to the IRS. So the IRS will know that you got paid through Zelle or got paid through Cash App, even though you may not be reporting it on your end. So it's really important for you to think about the tax implications and build that in to whatever your business model is. If you know you got to pay taxes, then when are you going to pay taxes? How are you going to pay taxes, right? You have to account for the amount that you have to pay. You have to know how much you're expected to pay. And it's also important for you to know or to project how much you want to make so you can account for how you want to do your taxes and how you want to approach your business, which also goes back to your business entity, because your business entity may have an influence on how you're taxed, right? So you really got to understand what you're going to do with the income that you make and how you're going to pay your income tax and at what bracket, at what level. The other side of it is the sales tax piece. So for sales tax, you may be required to charge sales tax on a product that you sell, and the state that you're in, at a minimum, is going to want you, for all the sales that were generally made in that state, for someone who resides in that state, the state's going to want you to send them the tax that you charge them. So you got to account for who you charge for sales tax and send it back to the state. I hope that makes sense. But this is just very general information, and I should have said this before. I'm not a tax professional. I'm only giving you general information. You really need to dig deeper for yourself to understand the implications of all of this. So if you're charging a product and the state that you're in requires you to charge sales tax, then you're going to have to do that and send it in to the state. Now, other states that you don't live in or don't have like a location in may require sales tax too. They may require you to collect sales tax and send it to them too. Now, a lot of companies that make sales for you handle this for you on the back end, but some of them don't. So you need to understand what your requirements are for sending in sales tax that you charge. If you're a nonprofit, then you don't have to pay income tax, but you still have to do some kind of reporting. And if you're a nonprofit and you're selling a product, which by the way, you can do, and if you need more help, I'm trying to figure out how that works, I'm linking a video above. But if you're a nonprofit and you're selling a product, you're not exempt from charging sales tax, right? There are certain exemptions you can have as a nonprofit, but in a lot of states, you may not be exempt from having to charge sales tax. So that's, again, something else you need to research and know for yourself. So taxes, it's huge. And it has a huge financial impact on your business. So if you're putting off at least talking to an accountant or thinking through your tax strategy, I really advise you to talk to a professional so you can understand the implications of the decision that you want to make. Number 4 is software needs. So in this day and age, you cannot get away from using technology. You can't have the excuse, I'm not good at technology, so I'm just going to ignore that. In my opinion, and it's because I do a lot online and I do a lot with different technology and software, I don't think that you can get away with shying away from technology. You just can't. It's everywhere, especially after the pandemic when everything went virtual. You had to get comfortable with technology, whether you liked it or not. And so we're in a space now where you can do more, you can leverage more because of technology more than ever. So you should be thinking about all the different software you need for your business to excel. Now, here's some caveats to this. You're going to be trying out different softwares, and there's some that you're going to like, and then it's going to be time for you to level up and you have to change to something else, or you may be using something or you find something better. So this is an ongoing process. You don't just decide in the beginning of your business, I'm going to use this software, and then 10 years later, you're like, oh, everything's been good. No, it doesn't work like that. First of all, technology is always evolving. There's always a company that comes out with something better. And second of all, your business evolves. So as your business evolves, you may need different kind of software or services to meet you where you are at that point. And you may be in a different point than where you were maybe 2 years prior. So you got to understand what kind of software you need for like your website, for example, or for setting up your email. You need to know what kind of marketing software you want to use. You should be doing email marketing, so you should understand what makes sense for you. If you're going to have a lot of customers, you should consider having a customer relationship management system, a CRM. If you are doing any kind of marketing, which everybody will do, you need some kind of graphic design software. You may engage a designer at some point, but you should be able to design your own posts and business cards and things like that. So you need something like Canva in order to do design for yourself. You need some kind of accounting software, and even if you're not ready for something like a QuickBooks or FreshBooks, at least have a good command of spreadsheets so you can track spending, right? So there are so many different aspects of your business where you're going to need some kind of software or service, so you cannot shy away from using technology. So it's really important for you when you're deciding to launch a business for you to sit down and think about all the different software you may need to consider. And the reason why this is important as well is because you don't need everything right away. So I'm not saying this to be like, okay, day one, you need 20 softwares up and running. That's not true. You can start small and you can gradually add things as you grow. So just think about where you want to be in day one, and then as your business progresses, what do you need to add to whatever you're doing to make your processes more efficient and more effective. In my opinion, that's what technology is supposed to do. Technology shouldn't be a burden. And for a lot of people, it is a burden because you got to learn things, and it's like, I don't use it the way I need to, but you really should be using a service to make your product or your service more effective and more efficient. So try to use that as a way to decide whether or not you should use something or you should still use something. Use that two-part question. Is it effective, and is it making me more efficient? And if it's not doing either of those things, you should reconsider. And finally, number 5 is insurance. So when I first started my business, I was not thinking about insurance because for me, it was just another expense, and I wasn't trying to spend more money than I needed to, especially as I was just building my business. But I came to realize after talking to a broker that it's really important to know what kind of insurance you need to cover yourself just in case. Especially because I was providing a service where I was advising people, there are certain kind of insurance that you need beyond just general liability. And for example, if you're a nonprofit and you work with children, or if you're just a regular business and you work with children, there are certain protections you have to have in place. If you have a physical space, what happens if someone slips in your space, or you forgot to shovel the snow and something happens and there are accidents? Anything can happen, and you want to make sure you have the insurance in place to protect yourself so that you can protect your capital or protect the money that you have to continue to grow your business, and it doesn't stop you in your tracks. So if you haven't spoken to an insurance broker yet, you absolutely should. And you may not realize it, but a lot of insurance is reasonable. It could be a monthly cost, and it really, in the grand scheme of things, may not be a lot. So I really do advise that you think about insurance and consider what coverages you need for your business. Thank you so much for watching this video. So if you need help launching your nonprofit, make sure you check me out at bossonabudget.com. If you need help starting your nonprofit, I have a free startup checklist that I'm linking below. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next video.